Happy Monday.
Welcome to Sermon Break.
Yeah, welcome back.
We're excited to be here
Yes.
and talk about this week's message,
Yep.
which was amazing. We love Rich Wilkerson
Yes.
and his wife, Dawn Cherie, and VU Church. We had the opportunity to go there 2 years ago now.
Yeah, well,
to
I
their
went last
conference.
year.
Yes.
But we did go to the conference 2 years ago.
And we loved it.
We loved it. And I laughed. My mom was laughing too when Pastor Rich had said he loves that Elevation people always come through and they let him know that they're from Elevation. It's like, I don't know if they're taking a cruise or just stopping by. And that's been me every time.
Really?
I've been like, hey. I literally, this time last year, I was in Miami at VU, just there for a Sunday.
Oh, I love that. That's really cool.
Yeah.
I'm so glad that he was in the pulpit this week
Yes.
and got to preach on With God There's Always a Way. I love that new track. Have you been listening to it? Let us know. And let us know where you're tuning in from today, what you're having for lunch. I saw a few of you in here.
Yeah.
Hi, Nicole. Hi, Heather.
Camille, thank you for making Sunday so fun yesterday. I felt like every corner I turned, Camille was there with some sort of joke, a laugh, a text, whatever it was. So shout out to Camille.
I love that. Hey, Nadine. Hey, Akash. Good to have all of you on here.
Yeah.
Well, it was a great sermon.
It was so good.
He makes it so funny.
Yes.
I don't think I could preach and be that funny. But what I loved was when he was talking about if he could have any food, what it would be. And
Right.
like the idea of, okay, it's your last meal.
Yeah.
Or if it's, I forget what he said, if it's your last meal or if it's,
I can't
you have to eat
remember.
the same meal
Yes.
every single day
Yeah.
for 7 days. And then he said pizza. And in my head, I said pizza. I
Right.
was like, of course it's pizza. And then Stephen and I went and got pizza after
Right.
church.
I saw that.
And I love this pizza place down in
Yes.
Whitby. It was great. So I got a note in the chat. What food would you have? Are you on the pizza party train or do you have a better food? What would you have?
I would say pasta. It's
Okay.
kind of along the same lines, but that's definitely my comfort food. I never get sick of it. I could eat it day after day after day. So I would say pasta or pasta, as some people would say.
We're very much in this like
Yes.
Italy route,
Yeah.
I feel like, with the pizza and the pasta.
Yeah.
Cagney says pizza. Okay, so you're on the pizza party train as well. I don't know. It's just something about it. I think it's like the carbs
Yeah.
and like the tomato sauce, everything.
It's
but
the perfect combo.
it's the perfect combo.
Yeah.
But I definitely feel like he made that sticky for me. And
Yes.
we're gonna talk about his message a little
Yeah.
bit more.
Well, it was a great sermon, and I know you guys have sermon takeaways, so you need to put them in the chat. Let us know what your sermon takeaways are. Pastor Steven saying post-church pizza party. Yeah. Also, throwback to when we had our 16-year anniversary, and we had
Yes.
all those pizzas. It was a pizza party. Every person went home with a pizza. Crazy.
Shout out Charlotte Fishback, who
Yeah.
like called multiple pizzas or something. I
Yes.
forget what she did to make it happen, but it had to have been the largest pizza party that
I think it was. I think it was the largest pizza party in Canada. I'm pretty sure it was like a world record or something like that. But because we were on lockdown still, we weren't able to like submit it. I need to fact check that with Charlotte. Maybe Charlotte put it in the chat. Let us know if that's true. But I'm pretty sure I remember her saying that. But yes,
It makes
so
sense.
it does make sense. But please put your sermon takeaways in the chat. And while you do that, we're going to check out this clip.
Because faith is the absence of sense. You can't smell it. You can't taste it. You certainly can't see it. But you can hear about Jesus. And faith comes by hearing, and hearing the word of the Lord. She said, if I could just touch the hem of his garment. Friends, the garment is not even him. She had a kind of faith that said, if I could just touch the thing that's touching him. I got a revelation today. If the garment's got power, if the clothes have got power, how much more power does the body of Jesus Christ have? Come on, somebody. We are the church. I don't know about you, man, but when we gather, this isn't a cool atmosphere. It's not a concert. This is the very presence of God. And when you and I get into this place, you have no idea the miracles on your left, the miracles on your right. If I could pass this microphone down the rows, you would start hearing the testimonies and the stories from right here in this body of God's wonder-working power.
So good.
I
So,
love
so
that.
good.
I loved that clip so much. And just this idea of how she just felt like she needed to touch the hem of the garment. Like she had so much faith and she believed that that would help, that she would
Yeah.
be healed. And I think about that so much in my own life. Like, do I have a faith like that? Do I believe that God really hears my prayers, that he's really going to answer, and he's really going to come through? And I feel like this past season, it's really been something that I've been learning with God and how powerful our faith works. And I've heard so many testimonies from other people. I've seen God do a work in my life where I've really seen him be faithful, and this is just such a beautiful example of God's faithfulness in her life. And it was 12 years, but God knew this was the time.
Right.
And I don't know how long she had been praying and hoping and dreaming, but it was just her faith and her act of doing this that made all the difference.
Right. And I think something that Pastor Rich was saying, like, faith doesn't make sense. He's like, you can't see it, you can't smell it, you can't hear it. Like, it does not make sense. And that was so sticky for me because I think that all the time. I'm like, I know it doesn't look like what I'm believing for, what I'm saying, but like, I just have the faith that God is going to do it. Whether it be a situation he's going to turn around, a relationship he's going to restore, whatever the case may be. I feel like when we are able to really know that, like, if you declare it and believe it, God will come through. He will do that for you, but it's not always going to make sense.
Yeah.
And I think it's hard because it definitely doesn't make sense to the people around you either.
Right. I can only imagine what everyone was thinking and like watching this whole thing go on. Like they were probably thinking, why is she trying to reach out and touch him? Like, why is she acting like this? But it's just so beautiful that in that moment, like she put aside how she looked, any pride that she had, just to enter into this relationship with Jesus. And I know this is one of your favorite Bible stories.
Yes.
You talk about it all the time, but I don't know. I just love it. I love that it's like 12 years, this woman with this issue of blood, but it's the first time someone's called daughter. And I feel like that's always stuck with me too, because it's like she was so sick, so much was happening to her, but God, it just didn't matter. Again, it just shows how much he loved her and how much he came through for her.
If any of you watch The Chosen, there's an episode where it highlights this entire story so well. And in it, you can see just the like frustration, even from the disciples who are close to Jesus. Like, why are you trying to get close to her? Why are you trying to touch her? But the grace and the love and like almost the joy that Jesus has when he turns around. He's not angry with her. He's just he's like, I know someone touched me. And he already knows, like he knows what's happening. He knew it was going to come to pass. And so it's just such a beautiful picture. And I love how it just made The Chosen makes the Bible come to life for me. But that story specifically, she's so hated on by the rest of society. And Jesus is the one that like reaches out as she's reaching out to him and heals her, which I think it's her faith that heals her, which I think is incredible. I love, Kelly, you put in the chat earlier, you were saying one of your favorite points was when Rich said, follow Jesus, I promise you it's an adventure.
Yeah.
And it was just like a little tagline he had when he was telling his story of him and his brother-in-law. But in that moment, I was like, man, I feel that all the time. Like, it is such an adventure following Jesus. So many random things, funny things. All my friends like to say, like, you love signs and wonders, but it's true. Like, whenever we've had so many experiences where it's just been like, God, what are you doing? Like, this is so crazy, so cool.
And it can only be God. And I think it's so much better. Nadine always says to us, nothing is coincidence. And I feel like it's not. Like, you can see God so clearly in the way that he moves and makes things happen and opens doors that only he can open. Kelly, I like what you said. It might not be how you planned, but with God, it's going to be better than you expected. So my question for all of you on here, and for you too, Felicia, do you have a time when God has answered your prayer better than how you hoped?
Yeah, I feel like so many circumstances in my life, God has answered my prayers far beyond and blessed me far beyond what I was even praying for. One of them more recently, though, is with Sia. We just launched college and young adults, and I remember praying and believing that we would have like maybe a couple small groups, maybe 2 small groups, or that we would even be able to have the first night. I was like, okay, if 50 people showed up, like, I'm going to be blown away. And Taylor Watson, our Sia pastor, she's like, if 50 people don't show up, like, still be grateful. We didn't have 50 people our first time. And so the whole night I was like, I don't want to get my hopes up. But like 50 people would be pretty cool. And then there was 92 people.
I love it.
So I was like, God always goes above and beyond. Like, we ask for one thing. And I think too, it's his grace that like we ask for something and we're waiting for it and we're waiting for it and we get frustrated. We're like, God, why? It's so simple. Like, just give me this one thing. And he's like, it's because I'm preparing something so much greater for you. And I feel that to be true in every aspect of my life. Like, anything I've had to wait for, the wait has been worth it. Like, God has blessed me so much more than the things I had even asked him for.
Right. And I feel like launching College and Young Adults just was so perfect. The way that we were able to do this beautiful volunteer appreciation event. We were able to spend some time with Taylor and really get the vision and heart behind Sia. And now I'm just so excited for all that's going to come through that ministry, the relationships, the friendships, everything, the closer connection with God. I'm so excited about it. I think for me, there's also so many times I can think about times in my family. I can think about meeting Stephen. I can think about, I don't know, just moving back to Canada. But if I'm thinking in this e-group trend, I think about our e-group, and we've been doing a married couples e-group for a long time now. And every time that we start a new study, God has always brought new people, and you never really know how it's going to go, and you never know how they're going to, I don't know, respond to your leadership, the way that you run the group. And every couple that we've joined, it's just been so refreshing. And I feel like even on those nights where we've been doing it for a long time, sometimes it can be hard to log on the call, especially after a long day. But every time I've just seen God work in it, and I love seeing the friendships that come out of it. And I love being able to then talk to people on Zoom and then see them in person on church. It's just been so, it's been so beautiful. And like friendships, quality friendships, like that was always something that I was praying about. So I never take it for granted when God brings somebody new in my life to build a beautiful relationship with and help you get closer to with God. So that's one for me as well.
I love that. Heather put in the chat, the way God answers my prayers is mind-blowing. When I trace back his hand, I see how he always had a better plan than my request. Yes, I could not agree more. And me and one of my friends, Kiana, we were talking about this last night. Like, when I look back, I thank God for all the no's, for all the closed doors, because his plan was so much better than the thing that I was even praying for.
Right.
So
I loved his analogy, the hot and ready. I'm going back to pizza for a minute.
Yes.
Because again, I said it's going to really make it stick. I feel like so many times in my life, I feel like I've been hot for something. Like I really want something right now. I really feel like it's time, and like you almost become desperate when you really want something. I know I have become desperate for certain things, but it was such a good perspective to think like, okay, you can be hot for something, but it doesn't necessarily mean that you're ready.
Right.
And I know that your word last year was preparation. So obviously I joined in and learned a lot about preparation too through you. And it really showed me that like you can want something so bad and you can pray, but don't stop praying. Like was this whole thing, like do what you can do and then surrender the rest to God. And that's kind of how you become ready. Is when you take that step and you finally surrender it to God and say, you know what, God, you know my heart, you know, this is what I want. Make me ready and make me want what you want.
Right.
Help my will align with your will. And God, I trust that when you know it's the right time, you're going to make it happen. So I don't know. Hot and ready is so much more. It's just like a easy thing to grab onto, but I think that's just such a good perspective to hold if you're waiting for something or you're wanting something and you feel like God isn't answering my prayers. Like you're hot for it, but God knows when the time will be to be ready, and preparation is really such a beautiful season. Yeah,
I loved, this was a couple years ago, Pastor Stephen had preached and he was talking about a baby and an incubator, and he was saying like an idea or a dream or a vision that God gives you, if you take it out too soon, if you try and do that thing before it's supposed to be done, it's never going to work out.
Right.
And so
you can't sustain it.
You can't sustain it. And so he was saying like, value those seasons of waiting, value those seasons of like keeping that thing secret, quiet, while it grows until it's ready for, God's ready for you to step into it. And I think so many times I know like with me, God won't show me a vision for something because he knows if he does, I'll act on it immediately. But rather he'll like give me the next step to take. And I love when Pastor Rich was even saying like, we need to move. Like Heather, I think you might have even put it in the chat. Faith is, we need to move. Like without works, it's dead. So we need to step, we need to move forward. We need to put action into the things that we're believing for. We can't just like sit here. I loved when he was talking about the singles, and he was saying like, hey, if you're believing for a partner,
this is too good.
It was too good. He was like, you can't just like stay in your house, because all you're going to get is like the Uber Eats. I hope you like the Uber Eats drivers, because those are the only people you're going to meet. There needs to be some sort of step, some sort of action behind the things that you're believing for. So I thought that was super good. I really loved when he was saying, just because you're stepping and shouting doesn't mean that you're ready.
Yes.
And like, just because someone's saying the thing and it looks like they're doing the thing doesn't mean that God's ready for them to step into that. And I think so many times in my life, when even I was in school, I had gotten a job prematurely. I was only in my first year of college, and they really liked me, and I could say all the right things, but I was like, I'm not ready to counsel young kids. Like, I'm only 20 myself. I'm not going to be able to work with 18-year-olds. And I learned so much through that, and it was God's grace. Like, he still sustained me and kept me through that season. But it would have been so much better if I would have been ready, like
right.
God ready, not ready in my time.
Right. Well, that's amazing that you like, I don't know, it's so hard, I think, sometimes to have that discernment, right? Because sometimes you maybe, I don't know, it's hard to know when you're always ready. That's why I love when God just kind of takes over and make the things happen. Because I feel like for me, I always say to Stephen, I'm an unreliable source. I don't know if I'm ready. I need God to really confirm that I am ready. And that, again, comes through prayer and time in my Bible, and obviously talking to people around me and confirming, okay, I'm stepping into this. Should I continue? And if God's blessing it, then I can believe and walk in faith that he has my back and he's supporting this. So that's great.
Yes.
Okay, our action step for today. You put this in the chat. A lot of you put this in the chat. So we have to talk about it for a second. You have to get a confession louder than your circumstance. And the action step is faith talks. So how can your confession, how can it be louder than your circumstance?
I think something that I love, the Bible says that there's life and death in the power of the tongue. Like, the words that we speak are so powerful. And so speak faith, speak life over your circumstance, and start talking to the people around you. Let them know what you're believing for. I know for me, I used to get really worried that I wouldn't want people to see me disappointed. So I'd be like, I'm not going to tell anyone what I'm praying about. I'm not going to tell anyone. There's certain things that you should be keeping to yourself, but there was a lot of things that I could have partnered with other people in prayer, or just be like, hey, I'm believing for this thing, because when it did come to pass, God would get so much more glory.
Right.
Instead of my pride getting in the way, being like, I don't want people to know if I don't get that thing, or I don't want people to know if I'm disappointed. And so really talk to the people around you. Get in an e-group. If you aren't in an e-group, get in an e-group. Like, really start sharing and believing and declaring these things over your life.
Yeah. Words have power, and also negative words have power. So there's been times, sometimes I've said something negative, and Stephen's really good at calling me out, being like, no, don't even say that. Don't even go down that road, because faith talks, and God sees what we're talking, but the devil sees too. So if he knows that there's like a little bit of doubt in my mind about something, that can easily get pulled down into a direction that I don't want to go, because I know that what I really want, the new me, the me that God knows, is the one that is full of faith and believes that God is going to give me good things and not be pulled down by self-doubt or, I don't know, discouragement.
Those little weasels, don't let those weasels in your mind, because it'll snatch up that seed. It'll take it.
Right.
And so really speak life and speak faith over your situations.
Nicole, I'm so glad that God answered your prayer and you have an e-group at noon. That's amazing. That's great. Heather also agrees. Be careful what you think and what you say. It has power to uplift or destroy. Amen. It does.
Yes.
Well, have a great week, everybody. We'll see you on Sunday for mindset number 4.
Yes.
Are we on? Bring somebody back with you, because these are great. They're so practical.
Yeah.
And I feel like I have them memorized.
Yeah.
Just by living in this.
Yep.
And it's been so helpful. So I'm so excited for week 4.
Yes. Well, we can't wait to see you on Sunday.
Have a great week.